История этого города по официальным источникам.
According to official sources, the history of the city began in the middle of the 19th century. However, archaeological finds and studies show that the first settlements appeared here more than 1,000 years ago. Streets and buildings in the city are true archaeological masterpieces, enveloped in mystery and many curious facts. Hello, this is Terra Incognita project. My name is Anton Fedorov, and I begin my journey through Almaty, the largest city of Kazakhstan. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the first opera and ballet theater, which came into being in Kazakhstan a little less than 100 years ago. Then we will walk through the historical part of Almaty, learn about ancient crafts, and take a dive into the thick of Almaty parks. What do we pay attention to when first meeting someone? First of all, their appearance, and then as we talk, we'll learn about their manners, and then pay attention to their virtues and shortcomings. Then we become interested in their story, their life, and only having received a complete picture, we form our view of the person. The same is true for the cities. Every time we find ourselves in a new city, we first look at how clean its streets are, then we become interested in its history, then its content, and only after that we come to an understanding of whether we like the city or not. In this series of the Terra Incognita project, I want to introduce you to Almaty, a city of amazing beauty and fascinating content.
Чтобы лучше ощутить энергетику Алматы,
To keenly feel the energy of Almaty, start exploring the city from its historical part. We could say that it was from or around that place, the intersection of Kaban-Bay-Batyr and Panfilov streets, that administrative life of the southern capital of Kazakhstan began. Here in the golden square of several city blocks, the half-century-old history of the Kazakh megalopolis is concentrated. Each building here is an architectural monument, and I would like to tell you about one of them today. This is Abay Kazakh State Academic Opera and Ballet Theater.
имени Абая.
With the emergence of a military post in this territory, which will in the future become a beautiful city at the foot of the Transili Almaty, and with natural population growth, there came a need to create cultural facilities and sites for mass-scale visitations of people. However, the city just started to acquire its boundaries. Active construction of the municipal infrastructure began here after Almaty was assigned the status of the capital of the Kazakh SSR. In 1933, a decision was made to build an opera house.
Изначально, когда открывался театр, это была общедоступная, общенародная сценическая театральная площадка.
Initially, when this theater was opened, it was a public, nationwide performance venue. The theater saw its first footlight on January the 13th, 1934. Ayman Sholpan musical play was staged, and after such an interesting production, the entire city started talking about the theater that appeared in Kazakhstan.
Заговорил о том, что появился театр в Казахстане.
One might as well say that the initiation of Kazakh opera art began from that moment. Ayman Sholpan musical comedy, staged after Mukhtar Awazov's play, gained the broadest recognition in the Soviet Union.
Который, собственно, в 1936 году вывезли на...
In 1936, the performance was shown in Moscow. After that, we had the first people's artist of the USSR, Gulash Baysaidova. The opera created a furor, and it's safe to say that the procession of our natural opera art began from this moment.
Нашего национального оперного искусства.
The history of the theater developed rapidly. On November the 7th, 1941, it moved to its building. In the same year, the theater received an academic status, and in 1945, it was named after Abay, the great Kazakh poet, philosopher, and enlightener. Ever since, the theater has been inextricably linked with the development of the entire Kazakh culture.
Именно здесь были поставлены все.
It was here that absolutely all the Kazakh operas were staged. All the first premieres of the operas by Tchaikovsky, Mussorgsky, Rimsky-Korsakov, Mozart, Bizet took place. Too many to name. There were over 300 productions. This theater is not only a temple of culture. This is a true architectural masterpiece filled with glitter, beauty, and grandeur. It was designed and built with an understanding that the Kazakh art will have lots of followers. The theater hall accommodates 793 spectators. It was just a huge facility for Almaty. Just think, in the first years, the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow contained only 2 times as many seats, 1,600.
В 1995 году началась...
In 1995, the general reconstruction of the theater began. It lasted for 5 years. Builders and designers were able to preserve the main style of the facility, the Empire style, combining Italian classicism and elements of the national form. The design of the lobby on the second floor and the auditorium included elements of the ornament that adorned the costume of the Golden Man. The richness and diversity of the traditions of the Kazakh folk art have found use in the decoration of other theater interiors.
Это старинный центр. Здесь
This is an old downtown. There are lots of points of interest around the theater. We could say that it was from the Abay Theater that our city expanded.
Особый интерес в театре оперы и балета.
Of particular interest in the Opera and Ballet Theater is its museum. There are unique exhibits collected here, for example, these sketches. These were created by artists before starting preparations for the staging of Abay opera.
Также история театра заключена в первых афишах, которые были...
Also, the history of the theater is enclosed in the first bills that were hung in the city in the early years of the theater. For example, this bill announcing the same Abay opera in 5 acts. The publication date was March the 24th, 1946. There even remained a print label with the order number 366, and circulation of the bill was 75 copies. Abay Kazakh State Academic Opera and Ballet Theater creates a magnificent appearance of the city of Almaty, filling it with refined manners. Therefore, when meeting the Kazakh metropolis, be sure to visit this theater.
Если вы выйдете из Государственного академического...
As you walk out of the State Academic Opera and Ballet Theater, you will certainly get to Panfilov Street, the main pedestrian street of Almaty. Initially, this street was called Kazarmenaya, and later Krasnoarmeyskaya. In 1945, it was renamed in honor of Ivan Panfilov, the military commander, hero of the Soviet Union who made it into the history of the Second World War. In 1941, General Panfilov commanded the 316th Rifle Division, which was formed in Almaty. This division defended routes of approach to Moscow on Volokholamsk direction and halted the offensive of 2 tank and 1 infantry divisions of Wehrmacht. Ivan Panfilov died in a battle on November the 16th, 1941, in the area of the Dudosakovo crossing not far from Moscow. Streets were named in honor of this general in more than 40 cities of the former Soviet Union.
А вот еще один любопытный факт из истории улицы Панфилова.
Here is another interesting fact from the history of Panfilov Street. In 2017, there was a reconstruction here, and the builders found cobbled street right here, under several layers of asphalt, which, according to experts, is about 90 years old. In honor of this, a small monument was erected here with an inscription. Several streets in the center of the city were paved with this cobblestone. Thus, 90 years ago, Panfilov Street was already pedestrian. And here, in fact, is a fragment of the preserved cobbled masonry.
Сохранившейся булыжной кладки.
More precisely, 90 years ago, Panfilov Street was not pedestrian only. Of course, there were carriages and rare cars driving here, but it primarily served as a gathering place for city dwellers and served more as the communication artery of the city.
Улица Панфилова находится в исторической части города. Можно сказать, что это...
Panfilov Street is located in the historical part of Almaty. It could be said that this is one of the first streets that appeared here in the middle of the 19th century when Almaty was burning. It hosted a military council, artillery barracks. This is where minor officials, merchants, wealthy artisans, and officer families settled. Many buildings built since then along Panfilov Street have retained their original appearance and today fill the city with a special spirit of history. The length of Panfilov Street is 3,800 meters. The authors of the project explored many pedestrian streets around the world before its development. The closest in appearance and functionality to Almaty's Panfilov Street was La Rambla in Barcelona.
Интересный факт, что первые пешеходные зоны, к примеру, в Европе появились еще...
An interesting fact is that the first pedestrian streets, for instance, in Europe, appeared in the middle of the last century. But their main idea was not that the street was a transit corridor for the public or cargo transport to move along. Above all, it was a public place for the development of culture and business. Each pedestrian street performs 4 functions: social, recreational, educational, and trading. Panfilov Street is a perfect example of that. A walk along Panfilov Street will certainly plunge you into a half-century-long history of Almaty. Local craftsmen will show you how the Kazakhs created household items in the ancient times: money, jewelry, and household utensils. But if you want to get to know the artisan traditions of the Kazakh people better, you must visit the Kazakh Honor Center.
Я приехал в центр ремесленников.
I came to the Artisan Center to connect with history. The history of the Kazakh people is being revived in the center before our eyes. With precise movements, craftsmen's hands create amazing articles. One could look at the work of artisans endlessly. They do what their ancestors did many centuries ago with such skill and love.
Идея создания Центра ремесленников Казак-Унир
The idea of establishing the Kazakhstan Artisan Center came in 2017, just after the Universiade 2017. In the year when Expo 2017 was held in our country. The purpose of creating such a center was that all the artisans of Kazakhstan did not have a single platform where they could not only discuss their problems, but could also plan some of their events and their activities.
мероприятия, свои действия.
Conservation of ancient traditions and crafts is important for any nation. They help to understand one's national identity, give an idea of the life of their ancestors many centuries ago, pass down knowledge that has not lost its value even centuries later. The processes of cultural reassertion define new stages of the spiritual and moral development of the nation and become an important condition for the preservation of the Kazakh ethnos amid ethno-cultural diversity.
Здесь вы в центре можете увидеть изделия из кожи и дерева, изделия из войлока, вышивку, ювелирные.
Here at the center you can see products made of leather, wood, felt, embroidery, Kazakh jewelry, ceramics and weaving. All kinds of traditional crafts are represented here. It can be homeware, it can be textiles, it can be dishes, it can be jewelry. Everything that the Kazakhs had in antiquity, all that is represented here.
Ну, в общем, все, что было у казахов в древности, все здесь представлено.
Looking at the variety and unique technique of making all these household items, you admire the knowledge our ancestors had. Each item created by modern craftsmen is part of the great history of the entire nation.
Невозможно пройти мимо древнего оружия.
It's impossible to walk past ancient weapons, a sharpened axe. Pay attention what an interesting structure it has got. In addition to the main blade, it also has another one on the handle, which can also seriously damage the enemy.
Серьезно причинить травму противнику.
As the director of the center, Aygul Janserikova admits that the hardest thing was collecting information about crafts and their custodians, because many of the skills and abilities of the people almost disappeared into history over several centuries and were almost forgotten forever.
В основном ремесла, навыки, ремесленные навыки передаются из поколения в поколение.
Crafts and skills are passed down from generation to generation. They almost come through artisans' dynasty. Well, many of them, because of the relevance, environmental friendliness, natural craft products are now the thing.
Изделий сейчас очень модный, скажем. Есть такие мировые тренды, когда люди носят сейчас.
There are such global trends when people are now wearing clothes made of environmentally friendly natural products. Modern Kazakhs use wooden and ceramic utensils because they are very eco-friendly and healthy.
Это опять-таки очень, скажем, экологично, полезно для здоровья.
Well, it's time for me to continue my journey around Almaty to tell you as much as possible about this amazing city.
Если вас утомляют длительные пешие прогулки по городу, вы можете...
If you get tired from long walks around the city, You can use the services of a double-decker bus, which, like Hong Kong and London, was launched in Almaty for residents and guests of the city. This beauty's route passes through the most well-known places of the southern capital. During the trip on this bus, you will see the main city sights, feel the history of each building, and of course, you will see all stunning Almaty landscapes. Generally, you will have an unforgettable experience.
Незабываемые впечатления.
I have invited the most popular travel blogger of the country, Donat Aliyev, to talk about the tourism potential of Almaty and world trends in the field of tourism. He began to travel actively over 10 years ago and can confidently say that he visited 6 continents, including Antarctica, and more than dozens of countries around the world. Donat has carefully documented all his incredible trips in his blog, where he has more than 105,000 subscribers now.
Донат, расскажите, пожалуйста,
Donat, tell me, how did you come up with the idea of becoming a travel blogger?
таким блогером-путешественником.
На самом деле,
I have to thank one person. His name is Sergei Potanin. He's my good friend. He's a Muscovite. At that time, he was a great blogger, and I once followed him and left a comment. He followed me in response, and we began to communicate. After a while, he said to me, "Dude, you have some very cool content. You should develop. You need to do something else." And so he helped me start blogging. He asked me to open my account, so I did. He wrote a post about me, and on the first day I got about 1,500 followers. And so the trend caught on.
больше поехало.
Понятно. Вам нравится то, что вы делаете?
Do you enjoy what you're doing? What experience do you get as you travel?
И путешествие это каждое путешествие это
To
буквально.
me, every journey is a euphoria. No matter where I go, be it Japan, the USA, or even outside the October region, this is always like euphoria for me. An incomparable feeling. It's hard to even describe it, I guess.
Ясно. Как вы оцениваете
How would you rate today's tour of the city of Almaty, and how would you assess the tourist potential of the southern capital of Kazakhstan?
Буквально вчера я ехал в такси, и такси
Just yesterday, I was driving in a taxi, and the taxi driver asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "From Aktobe." And he asks me, "Well, how do you like our city?" And I answer that to me, Almaty is one of the most beautiful cities in the world that I have seen. Because of this landscape, these buildings, and when you look in that direction, you see the mountains. I have never seen such a landscape anywhere in the world. Yes, there are similar ones, but not like this anywhere. This is a very beautiful city. You have traveled to a lot of different countries. What are the current global tourism trends that attract tourists? What do people like to see as they travel? And do we have that here in Kazakhstan? People are very attracted to different natural locations. They are being actively promoted around the world. Even in the US, they are building infrastructure to such places as the Monument Valley or the Grand Canyon. That is, these places are so popular that they are already becoming more and more known. There are a lot of places like this around Almaty, but unfortunately, they may not be as popular as ones in America. But I'm sure that the potential is simply enormous. I am sure that these places will soon surpass even the most famous sites in the world.
Замечательности во всем мире.
А где вот вам приходилось бывать и
Where have you been, and what are the richest experiences in your travels? What was the most memorable one?
Ну, я думаю, все-таки, наверное, это западная часть США.
I think it is the western part of the United States. I love to go there because a lot of places outside of Almaty and in general in Kazakhstan are just the same as those in the western part of the US. Many people compare the Monument Valley with Bozjira, which is located in the Mangistau region, or the mountains of Arizona with the Terra Canyon. Of course, it is not the Grand Canyon, but our mountains are very similar. Therefore, that part of America feels like my very own, and I like it very much.
скажите, пожалуйста, что нужно сегодня, чтобы стать блогером-путешественником?
What does one need today to become a travel blogger? Great income and resourcefulness. People who will watch you now may also want to try this. What piece of advice would you offer to them?
Это вы бы им дали.
Я вам так скажу, у меня на самом деле нет родителей, я сам...
I'll tell you what. I don't have parents. I'm supporting myself in full. I trained myself. And to be a traveler, to be a blogger, you do not have to have a lot of money. In fact, this is a myth. You just need to be smart, as they say in America, and try to approach everything wisely. You can always find cheaper tickets, Sometimes airlines make mistakes, and some resources can catch that and show such cheap tickets. There are a lot of subtle aspects like this. Yes, planning may take a month or two, but you will be rewarded with getting an exciting journey that you will remember for many years.
Будешь вознагражден тем, что ты получишь действительно хорошее, яркое путешествие, которое запомнится на долгие годы.
Спасибо.
Thank you for this interview. Thanks. Good luck and every success. Same to you.
Ну а мы продолжаем нашу программу, друзья, и впереди.
While we continue our program because we still have a few more interesting places that I would like to tell you about with great pleasure.
При составлении своего маршрута путешествия по Алматы
When planning an itinerary of your journey throughout Almaty, be sure to include a visit to the Park of the First President. This place is one of the most interesting and significant sites in the city.
О масштабе этого парка вы поймете уже при входе.
You will see the proportions of this park at the entrance. Here you will face an impressive and at the same time very elegant semicircular arcade, consisting of decorative columns. According to the ancient Roman principles, these columns symbolize the grandeur and stability of the state, and of course demonstrate the skill of local architects and builders. The territory of this park is 73 hectares. For a city with a population of about 2 million people, the terrain is quite large. Initially, this tourist site was created for the convenience of guests and residents of Almaty for their outdoor activities.
Первые городские парки появились еще в Древнем Китае.
The first city parks appeared in ancient China. Then later in the 17th and 18th centuries, the fenced green areas began to be established in Europe, the first being in France. Public parks appeared in the Old World countries at the beginning of the 19th century. The Park of the First President in Almaty was opened in 2011 and immediately fell into the list of the most visited tourist sites of the city. The main idea of this park was the combination of natural landscapes and advanced technologies. The place for the construction of a large-scale arboretum here was not chosen by chance. The park is located in the northwestern part of Almaty, right at the foot of the mountains. I should say that the entire green array here was planted based on a special vegetation layout map. There are about 3,000 coniferous trees, about 9,000 deciduous trees, about 400 shrubs, and thousands of various flowers here. Of course, the Singing Fountain is the most famous landmark in the park. It is a whole complex of fountains. It consists of 5 round bowls raised to different levels. The diameter of the bowls gradually decreases from the extreme to central. In each cup, the water creates its original pattern. There is a tall sculpture in the form of a crown decorating the fountain, surrounded by medallions with zodiac signs. The main fountain jet rises to 30 meters, while the whole system of its pipes pumps 4,000 cubic meters of water each day.
Алматы – это город, в который невозможно не влюбиться.
Almaty is a city that is impossible not to fall in love with. Its interesting history, fascinating architecture, and captivating energy attract millions of tourists here like a magnet. If you ever decide to visit this city, you know where to go. It was the Terra Incognita project. My name is Anton Fedorov, and see you in the next episode.